This is Batgirl, and you're listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
It's been 5 years, and the Geekcast Radio Network would like to give back to you. How, you may ask? Well, first of all, we're coming up with a brand new website to be launched June 1st, 2014. In addition to that, there'll be many new features for interactive abilities. So how do you enter into this magical celebration? Well, Geekcast Radio has a contest where you can win some awesome prizes, ranging from comics, Blu-rays, DVDs, trade paperbacks, and comics, and more. How do you enter? Write in your favorite stories of how the Geekcast Radio Network has affected you in the last 5 years, and how it's unleashed the geek in you. You can also enter by writing reviews on our shows on iTunes. For more information, visit www.geekcastradio.com and click on the banner. So until next time, unleash the geek in you.
Hi, this is Dr. Andrea Letamendi.
And Brian Ward from the Arkham Sessions.
And you are listening to
the Geekcast Radio Network.
Welcome to The Pull Bag. Join us as we dig out our latest comics and discuss them with a rotating panel of the GCRN crew. So sit back and enjoy this week's Pull Bag.
Welcome to Gotham.
Hello and welcome to The Pull Bag. This is the next Back Issue Classics episode. I am your host, TFG and Mike, and we're headed to Gotham City this time, and we have two very, very special guests. You've heard them on our interview. You can hear them weekly on the Arkham Sessions. We have Dr. Andrea Letamendi and Mr. Brian Ward. Hello, people.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you guys?
Doing very well. How are you?
Very well, very well. I'm excited to get this going because when I made the decision to stop doing single Bat Family coverage on the Pull Bag and go strictly to trade, I'm like, who can I get to do Batgirl? And then we had our interview, and I'm like, duh, get her therapist.
Ha! It could be the worst decision ever, because I may never stop talking.
Well, you know, I've already had, I think, there was actually in total it's a 6-episode arc of Transformers comics on the show before. We did More Than Meets the Eye volumes 1 through 3 and Robots in Disguise volumes 1 through 3. Those 6 podcasts average out to be about 10 or 11 hours of podcasting altogether. Wow. So trust me, I'm by no means against long records. But yeah, so far the Back Issue Classics, I've been doing the IDW Turtles stuff, and I figured since this is going to actually air in the 75 Years of Batman month that I have planned here in May, that I would throw Batgirl in, since Steve and I just talked about The Killing Joke, and we'll talk about that a little bit here. Yeah, I went nuts here in May. 13 podcasts in 1 month.
Wow.
Wow.
I have a lot of time on my hands.
That's dedication right there.
Yeah. All to Batman, or to the Bat Family, because all of the episodes this month are either pre-52 or pre-New 52 or post-New 52, so very interesting.
Oh.
All right, so do either one of you want to bring up really quickly how you both first got into being fans of Batgirl?
That would be, I think, Drea, you've got a better story about Batgirl.
I wouldn't say it's better. You shouldn't say it's better. It's just different.
It's different.
It's politically correct.
I mean, my story is very easy. Mine was just, she's a redhead. She's redhead. She's hot. No, I grew up reading all Batman titles, and I grew up watching the 66 Batman series, and so for me, Batgirl was always just a part of the family, and being a fellow Ginger, I became an instant fan.
Well, the whole Gordon family is
that's right.
They're nice role models for Gingers everywhere.
or
Well,
certain.
Not all of them.
No.
I forgot about
There's
the
one.
one.
I will say though that as a redhead, I found it very unbelievable that two redheads would get married and have kids. Typically, we tend to stray away from the other redheads, but I do know there are some out there that, like other gingers. But me, I'm like, no, kids would be translucent.
There's one problem that I have with the Gordon family. The fact that, at least from my knowledge, her mother's name is also Barbara.
It's also Barbara, yeah.
Drives me nuts.
Yeah, she's another redhead named Barbara Gordon.
Oh my god, it drives me nuts. All right, Drea, what is your story for getting into Batgirl? Oh, really quick, sorry. Brian, who is your favorite voice of Batgirl?
Oh. Voice as in animated? Or
Yep.
I don't know that I really have one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not really. No, not. I'm pretty good with anyone who plays Batgirl. I'm generally good with most people who are voice actors in general. I mean, there are very few characters that I hold so precious that can only be played by one person. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that Batgirl is really one of them. Why? Who's your favorite?
For the younger version, it's Tara Strong. For the older version from Batman Beyond, it's Angie Harmon.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Stockard Channing in the beginning in the actual series, but once she was unavailable for Return of the Joker and Angie Harmon took it over, that's who I hear in my head when I read old Batgirl.
Angie Harmon is good for sure. I like her voice a lot. And Tara I liked, but Tara's always just seemed very young to me. So it's, and that's sort of her bread and butter. But yeah, no, I like them all.
All right, Dre, what is your Batgirl story?
I actually didn't really read a lot of Batgirl prior to the New 52. Of course, I read The Killing Joke. That is a story that that stayed with me for obvious reasons. But when Gail Simone wrote, she started writing Batgirl for the New 52, that first issue really was so well written psychologically that I actually started my blog at that point with that review, with the review of the first issue, with keeping in mind that I wanted to start talking about psychology in comic books and heroes and villains and trauma. And that particular issue, that very first issue, finally kind of sent me over the edge, so to speak, in that I'm like, I just need to start writing about this. Maybe someone will read it.
Yeah, I know I always, when everyone was complaining about Iron Man 3, I'm like, go read this. And I point them to your psychology of Tony Stark. I'm like, this is the best explanation I can show you people.
That's so sweet. Thank you.
It's like, oh God, people are, and I'm going off topic here. People are complaining about that movie, and I'm keep telling them, don't you people realize he has gone through major crap? He's not the drunk that he was in the first two films.
Well,
Right.
the problem with any movie, and not that I want to go off on track, but I mean the problem. Yeah. This is the problem that I'm finding online right now is especially when you're talking about the hatred of Amazing Spider-Man 2, and before then you had the hatred of whatever. There are very few comic book movies that make it through these days, and I think the problem is most people want their comic books on screen as opposed to the understanding that a 2-hour film has got to be different than the way that you would write a slow burn 3 or 4 issue, and even in some cases 12 issue long arc of Batman or Batgirl or whatever. So I think when you're trying to boil that down into 2 hours, you're going to have character development that's quick. You're going to have a lot of pacing issues where you're trying to slow things down a little bit, but you're also trying to do big action sequences because that's what movies require. And it's very easy to hate on a movie like Iron Man 3, but I think Drea brings amazing gravitas to the understanding of what those writers were doing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So back to Gotham here. We have the Zero issue, and all of these Zero issues, basically the covers are the character bursting out of the book. I absolutely love that they did that. I wish they'd do this a little bit more often.
Yeah. Sort of a throwback to all the old issues that used to do the same sort of thing.
Yeah. We start out with Barbara basically setting up her room and talking about how her dad is a hero, and I love, just for the art, I love how the artist is doing this in this book. Ed Benez, I believe, is how his last name is pronounced. And we don't see the true recovery. Like, okay, we picked this issue up. Wait, I thought she was in a wheelchair. What happened? We don't see that directly in this, as far as how she's walking again. But
there's sort of allusions to it, but nothing.
Yeah. Yep. She says, I made a mistake once, but that's a story for another time. And she's got this paper she has to do for college, but it's all a big hoax because she wants to get into the evidence locker to find the armored batsuit.
Well, and what's interesting is she's already playing into the Oracle personality.
Oh yeah.
Like there are already allusions to the fact that she is super connected to information and how to get in and out. She's not doing it with the computer, but she's totally getting in any way she can.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting how they're the cops in this, as she's getting in to see this suit of armor and these cops doing this stuff in the precinct. They're talking about whether Batman is a myth or not, and some are saying no, it's all tech. Yeah. That old argument.
But it's interesting too, because that's right in the heyday of like the Nolan. Really, to be fair, a lot of the Nolan mythology of Batman most of it was tech.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, Andrea, what are your first initial thoughts on up to the point where she sees the batsuit or the armored batsuit?
Well, I think you're right. We are unsure about kind of what both her physical and psychological state are in terms of what she's experienced, and we certainly see that she's motivated, which is great to start with. That you're kind of pulled in pretty quickly, and then once we do see the suit, I think that's where it really picks up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we meet Harry here as he's being basically drugged through the police precinct, and she and James Jr. run into him, and I love the line where he says, where she goes, "That's just my brother. I know what he is. I can see," and that's kind of a hint of.
Like one when you see one.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know about that. How old do you think James Jr. is here? He's James Jr., right?
He looks maybe what?
Yeah, he's
6, 7.
No, I don't think he's that.
He's not that young.
No, I think
I'm just looking at one
10.
piece of art that's just from up above. Oh,
yeah,
no, he looks maybe
9, 10. Yeah, something like that. What I do love about this is I love the how Gail writes her. I will forever say this. The rest of the time we review this story and potentially the other trades in future episodes of the show, I love the internal monologue that Gail writes for her. It's absolutely amazing. And
that's great.
I always jab at a few of my Canadian friends, and I find it absolutely hilarious that she threw a jab at Canada with this character. So yeah, James Jr. is about 9 or 10, I would say. Now, do you think Harry here is like? Do you think he's having an effect on her as he's talking to her here, Drea? Is he getting into her head?
Well, I'm making sure we're looking at the same page here. This is when he interacts with her and starts talking to her, right?
Right, right. Training for what, Harry? For the coming plague, Red.
Where is that? Where am I looking? Why am I not looking at the same thing?
That's the page right where it's the opposite page where he's being brought in.
Here?
It's right after the Doctor Who ad.
Oh, here at the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously he's trying to intimidate her. He's sized up her brother. He's, he's getting up close to her face. That's probably what he does. I don't know that it's anything in particular to her. I just think that that's how he treats people. That's how he treats young women. So I think he is just trying to antagonize and intimidate her. And he may not know that she's who she really is, that she's very bright and she's strong, and that kind of interaction doesn't impact her the way that he's used to that, affecting people. But I like it. I think that you can kind of see how she doesn't back down, and she makes eye contact with him, and she, engages and asks him questions. I don't know that most of us would do that.
Mm-hmm. So his disciples, I guess you could call them, his own version of Waco, basically breaks in and tries to break him out.
Right.
Now this, the art here, I absolutely love how they're doing the breakout with the guns and the story. I mean, that's what I love most about Gail's run, or her storylines here, is she works the writing so well, and the artists, whoever's on the book, doesn't matter if it's Ed Benez or somebody else, they work the art so magnificently around it.
Oh yeah,
it's so great.
Now, what does it say that he is the holy man and his disciples are a lot of gun-toting women?
Yeah, pretty much. It probably says that he prefers his women as submissives than someone who would fight back, which he's not going to like it later.
Right.
So we get to the page where he is chasing Barbara and James Jr., and she's basically saying the cops are all headed for the lobby. We can't count on rescue James. And James says, I wasn't. So, I really don't get this kid. I don't dislike him. Like, I have a seething hatred for Damian Wayne for completely other reasons that I'll say later. People who listen to the show already know why. But, I
strongly hate Damian as well.
Yeah, oh, thank God, somebody else that agrees. We'll have to talk about that another time, but I don't understand James here. I know what he's going to become, but I don't get, like, the I wasn't thing. Like, what is that kid gonna do?
I think that means he's not hopeful, right? Because in that moment, she's saying, the cops are headed for the lobby. We can't count on being rescued. I mean, I think what she's saying is we need to come up with a plan here. And he's telling her, I wasn't, I think what he's saying is I wasn't counting on being rescued.
As a psychologist, I mean, you know what James becomes.
Yeah.
What are you seeing at this age that are red flags or anything? Is something like that a red flag for someone who, I mean, he's fairly calm, but he's not.
I don't see him as being calm. I see him as being emotionally a bit vacant and not, she's clearly in distress. Mm-hmm. She's not panicking, but she's clearly emotionally upset. She's scrambling to think of a plan. She's scared for her life. And I think he's impacted by this to some degree. But
And notice that nothing he ever says ends in an exclamation point.
no,
It's always
he's just
very
sort of,
matter of fact, very
he's sort of
cold.
He's not hopeful. He's not in distress. I think he's just experiencing it. He's going through the motions, and I don't know that there's a lot of empathy there. Maybe we would expect a sibling to be empathic and to look for comfort and to try to look for comfort from her or provide comfort to her.
Right.
And that's not happening. He's kind of disengaged. And that's what we would expect, knowing what happens to him, knowing who he becomes. That doesn't surprise me.
No. Yeah, every single line he has in this story, it just confuses the like Brian said, he's basically cold, and then he says tear gas. How interesting! Like, tear gas is the most interesting thing in his life right now. You've got this giant criminal chasing after you, and the criminal Harry says basically, I've decided the girl lives, the abomination dies. So I honestly think he knows one when he sees one.
I think so for sure.
I really think so, because I don't know if that's his character being that way, or if it's the fact that Gale wanted to work that part of it, like basically not necessarily showing you what James is going to become right now, but basically hinting at it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's her way of making Harry know that, or if it's just how his character is.
And I think she's done a good job, and so has Ed in his illustrations of showing James as a kid who is far too interested in the process. I think that's why he's fascinated by the tear gas. Like I think it's to see a man coming at you is one thing, but to see that man or and his disciples using guns and tear gas and explosives, I think he is fascinated by the process of killing.
Yeah. So we get to the fact that she basically loses him in the gunfire and the tear gas and everything else. So Barbara and James are separated from each other. And Harry says, "Oh, did your little brother rabbit on you, Willow? You're better off,
He's right.
And I gotta say, I'm generally not one to liking when they use like the and sign or the at sign or the exclamation point for cursing, and they don't do it here. Thank God. She actually finishes her thought in monologue, but she basically says, "Oh shoot." So I like how they did that there. And again, Harry's like, "I'm really doing your family a favor." So, like, how much of this is Gale throwing into this character that he seems to know this whole prophet thing of his? That's a little. It's not. I wouldn't say strange. It's a little. I don't know.
Well, I think she's also setting up, because up to this point, issue 0 came out after a number of other issues. So up to this point, we've not really gotten a really good sense of what kind of a character James is. I mean, this was basically a the New 52 relaunch was supposed to start every character at ground zero and work their way up, and this is the first time we really get an opportunity to really explore what James is going to become, and I think this is her way of setting that up by making a very creepy villain, because right after this issue, not that we'll cover it here, but right after this issue we start to see a lot of what James has become.
Oh yeah, because it goes issue 12 to issue 0 to issue 13.
Yeah.
In the DC order, but in the proper order. So we get to the page where she's like, "Breathe, Barbara, breathe." And the commissioner's outside, and he wants to get in there. His kids are in there, and McKenna basically says the hostiles are blocking the exit. Let the negotiators do their jobs. We can't lose you, sir. And we go back to Harry, and he's basically searching for Barbara. He says, "Don't you want to say goodbye to your rescuer?" And all we see is him turn around and someone say, "Hey." And she's decked out in the armored batsuit.
It's great. I like,
Wow.
I mean, this costume or suit. I actually, the way that it's drawn on her, it's a little bit loose, but it works, it fits her. It shouldn't, but it's, like it's in places it's kind of loose, as I said, but it still is, looks like obviously like a bat suit on her, and she makes it work.
Mm-hmm. She makes it work most in the cowl. The rest of it actually the sad thing is, it reminds me of when my mom got a 89 bat emblem, sewed it on a sweatshirt, and I went out in sweatpants and a sweatshirt as Batman for Halloween.
It's not that terrible.
Well,
No,
it
is.
No, I'm not.
But
I'm
it
not
is
saying
kind
it's
of
bad.
But it is supposed to be
Homemade.
that sort of homemade thing. I mean, this was the cops, their basic. Description of what Batman looked like, and
no, I'm not saying it is as bad as a sewn on emblem on a sweatshirt and sweatpants. I'm just saying that's what it reminds me of, because I had bat gloves and a cowl, and then the rest of the outfit was a sweatshirt and sweatpants.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little ill-fitting, but it's I think it's inspiring. I think that this is, if it wasn't already obvious, to folks as they're reading through this is that moment that she becomes the superhero, because in the page before, she's questioning herself and realizes, no, I'm intense, I'm driven, exceptional, but now I have to prove that. So this is how she does that. Yeah.
And so she does do that, batter up. She socks him one. Thank you, Sensei, thank you. Now, she says in this that she's had training, and I understand this issue came after the first 12, but she's had training. When did this training happen? If this is supposed to be a relaunch? See, that's problem.
Confusing. Yeah.
Well, that's a cop.
Okay, yeah, but she says, "Thank you, Sensei." So when did Bruce send her to Japan? Because actually, in this issue, if you think about it, she's not Batgirl yet. I don't know. It's the way I took this issue. This was supposed to be some sort of 0 month or 0 year kind of thing. So we get.
I just took it that she was trained, that she had been through martial arts like a lot of kids.
That's true. So we get to, she says, "Oh man, did that just happen? I think that just happened." And she basically shouts, "Hooray," with a question mark. And we see a "you." Oh my God, it's him. "You did this?" Kinda. And we see the new 52 Batman in the Batsuit. I love the Jim Lee design. I really do. It fits Batman so well.
I'm sold on anything Jim Lee does, frankly.
So we get her supposed first confrontation with Batman, and she basically tells Dwight that she's going to go get help and she'll be right back. And she says, "I know I want my life to matter." And all of a sudden, Junior pops back in. How interesting.
Yeah, where has he been the whole time?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm wondering. It's not like there's a Robin suit in the evidence locker.
Yeah, my guess is that.
Well, he's been hiding. I mean, what is that? Yeah, he's hiding behind behind pipes.
Right, but his comment, he's watched. He knew what happened.
Oh yeah.
Right. So he's been watching. He's certainly not been helping, but he's also, but he's also like, now normally a kid around his age would have been in distress or shock. and would have completely showed signs of some kind of emotional reaction. So he's, again, as you mentioned, he's just kind of emotionless, just kind of a flat affect. Just, okay, that was interesting. And it's a little odd. I think the intention was that he would be unemotional and odd, and that we would have an uncomfortable feeling about him.
Yeah. I mean, even after, because I obviously read, previously to this, when this first came out, I obviously read the first 12 issues before this, but after, even after those, going back to this, it's like, that kid looks like somebody that needs to be on Unsolved Mysteries or something.
How early do kids who grow up to have that sort of problem that James is like at what point in time do you start to see signs of pulling wings off of flies and or animals?
Usually
Slaughter.
you do see it under the age of 18. Usually there are some signs during adolescence.
Mm-hmm.
And we joke about it, but one of the major predictors of adult antisocial behavior is animal cruelty during childhood. So that means torturing animals, harming animals, killing animals. And that is this sort of the combination. It's a combination of not having empathy, like not realizing that hurts, that it's hurtful, but also this interesting curiosity to cause pain.
Right.
Absolutely. So the next page, we get more of Barbara's monologue. The next day, all the papers mentioned was my father's brave leadership. No one mentions the two oddballs with the capes. And we see a beautiful, beautiful picture of her with her blue, black, and gray outfit. She almost looks like Catwoman here, except she's got a bat symbol on her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very nicely drawn.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure if she should be swinging around, though, without the mask on. Like that panel that's right next to the one where she's sliding down with the full costume on, but she basically has no cape, and yeah, that's a little strange.
Mm-hmm.
So we get, part of her monologue is, she's gotten used to the hero life, and, the next page is Batman, Batgirl, and Robin going out and basically, crime fighting, and I love the twistedness of how Gail writes this, because she came back to this this 1 year later. The bottom line here, like twisted moths, we can't stay away from the darkness, which she said that about her actual family earlier in the issue. It's just slightly tweaked here. So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
No wonder she had to get a new therapist. She can't date the current one.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought that current. Oh well, that's true. Yes, I thought the new therapist
issue
was gonna.
No, not the new one. The current, the guy.
Yeah.
Right. Well, he's the physical therapist.
Oh, okay. So
right?
see, I thought. Yeah, I don't know. She just mentions it as therapist. So
yeah, he's which you do. He's a physical therapist, and you might have a physical therapist for just as long as you have a therapist, a behavioral therapist, or a psychologist. And I was confused by that too, because she calls him her therapist, but it's her physical. He's her physical therapist. And I don't know, but I also don't know if she should be dating her physical therapist.
No.
I think that's probably frowned upon.
Yeah, pretty much so. The issue ends with her monologue saying, "But that's the thing, the terrible truth. Sometimes the darkness finds you." And we end with that classic shot of Mr. Hawaii Five-0 himself.
Right.
Oh, that is just so chilling. Just don't ever answer the door for the Joker, ladies and gentlemen. Just don't.
It's not that she knew that that was him.
No, but we as the audience do.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
So,
no matter what he's wearing, do not open the door.
yeah. Especially if he looks like Tim Drake. Old Tim Drake. Wow. All right, issue 0. I really did like it. I cannot say enough good things about Gail's writing. The art in this was absolutely amazing. What about you guys? What are your final thoughts on the 0 issue?
I like the sort of revision to her old story because we always knew that back in the day she went to a costume party dressed as Batman in order to sort of get back at her dad, and I like this story better. Really, I mean, I like that it is tactical gear. It's not a costume. It gives her an opportunity to show off her moves, and Batman actually gets to see it, and he's impressed.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the art is absolutely fantastic. It's excellent. But, as you said, the story's well written because you get her inner monologue, and when Gail writes that, she really does capture the emotion, the cognition, the behavior. Like she really does capture everything that happens in our brains when we're in action or when we're, emotionally overwhelmed. And she does that really well. So it's well written, but it also really handles the idea of Barbara having that innate sort of self-doubt. And it's an interesting dynamic. It's the idea that I'm exceptional, I'm different, I'm empowered, I'm going to do something. I really am going to do something heroic. Coupled with, can I do this? Am I strong enough? What will happen to me? Is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? So that we'll see that theme throughout. We have seen that theme throughout, the first several issues.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to insert some sort of Batgirl funny quip here, and we'll come back with the darkest reflection.
What? You should be sidewalk stroganoff! I changed the menu.
Hi, my name is Dr. Andrea Letamendi, clinical psychologist.
And I'm Brian Ward, nerd. And we want to invite you to listen to our new podcast, The Arkham Sessions.
It's a podcast dedicated to the fun
and geeky
analysis of Batman the Animated Series, episode by episode.
We pay tribute to the writers and the stories of the animated series.
While also exploring the very real psychology behind Gotham's rogues.
And maybe even its heroes. All of this and more
each week
on The Arkham Sessions
at underthemaskonline.com.
All right, we are back, and we have Batgirl. I have the trade. Brian and Andrea have the single issues. The trade is very well put together. I absolutely love it. How it starts out for the trade is it's basically an image of Batgirl versus Mirror, and then you open it to the actual credits. It's part of the train sequence that happens later in the book where she's riding the train, trying to stop it. No pigeons were hurt in the drawing of this image. And we get the main cover of the first issue, which is basically her just coming out of the shadows with what I assume are a whole bunch of bats surrounding her. I like this cover. I don't know, it could do a little more, maybe. I don't know if I don't know. I like it. It's interesting. I think what's more interesting in the trades is how they do the covers, where they do the regular cover and then they do the black and white version behind it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So we get a prologue here, and we see some guy with a list, and he's got this list, and the top panel is the very bottom letter is a B, so we know something's up with that.
And he's crossed. Is that me? Did I cross this off, or he did? Oh, he crossed that off.
No, he did.
I'm like, am I defacing my comics here? One name is already crossed off.
Right.
So, something pretty menacing is going on.
Yep. So we're at the happy home of Mr. Carter, and he says, "Who the devil?" Yeah, you should never dance with those in the pale moonlight.
No, never.
No matter what the Joker's wearing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
This, from what I remember, yeah, it's kind of a gruesome death. Yeah.
It is. Because I don't think he just shoots him. Oh no, he doesn't just shoot him. He shoots him in the mouth. The gun is actually in the guy's mouth. Wow. Yeah, that is pretty gruesome.
Well, it's a hose, right? It's his water hose. So Mr. Carter is watering his little dog's there. He's watering his garden or something. Yeah, he's watering his garden.
Yeah.
And this you don't quite see this full character. You see this glove and a dark black cape, and then he grabs the hose from this man, and just the one page of him basically he's drowning him by sticking a hose in his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I first saw this, it's very visual. There's not a lot of dialogue here.
No, there is dialogue, but there isn't a lot here. But if you look at the top panel there, where you see his hand, to me it really did. Even though I now see that there's water coming out the end of it, it did look like a gun because how the metallic is shining off the.
Yeah, and I think that's intentional. I think it's supposed to look that way.
Yeah, most definitely. So Graham Carter is crossed off the list, and next up is Barbara Gordon. What the heck is going on with this new villain? Oh boy. So we get to Barbara later, where she says, "I'm not Barbara Gordon. I have to keep remembering that. Tonight I am not Barbara. Tonight I am not the police commissioner's daughter." And she says, "I am the one who recognizes the vintage costumes you wear. Tonight, I am Batgirl."
Andrea, you've talked several times on the Arkham sessions about Batman and Bruce Wayne keeping the two identities, the three identities you said.
Yeah, he has three.
Bruce Wayne, Batman.
Yeah.
This seems to be that exact sort of thing. Her differentiating Barbara Gordon from Batgirl. Batgirl would have no fear.
Right. Well, I think a couple of things are happening. One is that that dynamic I mentioned before, that she has both this feeling of heroism while also feeling self-doubt and vulnerable. So I think in order for her to really capture what she needs to capture psychologically in order to be Batgirl, she has to tell herself, "You're not Barbara, you're Batgirl." Batgirl is a more powerful, more able-bodied person, if that makes sense. And I also think when you're trying out a superhero for the first time or for your first year, you tend, in my experience, you tend to have these simplistic or general, kind of general beliefs about what that means. So right. I think that she believes that I have to not be Barbara. Right. So it's this extreme kind of very black and white thinking. Bruce / Batman, while there is that divide between those identities, he's not this black and white. He's not as rigid.
I don't know. I think Batman probably has the reverse pep talk. I think he tells himself, "Oh, don't forget, you are Bruce. Right now, you are Bruce Wayne."
He forgets that he's Bruce. Yeah. He's a little bit more fluid, though, in his than Barbara in his switching back and forth and what it inspires him. I think Bruce can accept himself as Bruce and also Batman. Barbara Gordon is still struggling with who Barbara Gordon is, which is why she has to have these kind of like self-talk.
Yes. I would say that Bruce is more, he has to have the talk with himself all the time that he is Batman. Like, Bruce Wayne is the Mask.
Yes.
And he is Batman.
Right.
That's what, that's what it boils down to. What, like you guys are saying with Batgirl, it's slightly different. What do we think of the new 52 outfit for her, Brian?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I look at the image, the one with the credit block, and I don't know, there's something about it that is a little off to me. I mean, the legs look a bit stubby. The foot coming toward us is a little. I don't know. I'm not quite enamored by this particular image, but.
Well, right, but I mean, like, the overall aesthetic of the suit compared to the blue and gray and black that we saw in issue 0.
Right.
I mean,
right.
This is essentially a black and gold and purple Batman, is what this is.
Yeah.
So we then go to the Brisby killers. Which apparently they didn't give themselves that name. It was a news media stunt. Doesn't surprise me at all. And they are basically terrorizing this family. When Batgirl shows up, and she shows up and basically kicks their asses, and one guy says, "Danny, what the hell? Hey, you knocked Tanya out cold." I did. I completely did. Like, she is so enthralled with herself because she is just coming off of 3 years of being in a wheelchair, and it's her first night, and I don't think she expected herself to do this well.
Little victories.
First, yeah.
Yeah, she surprised herself.
And she's doing fairly well for the most part. Is that a Spider-Man reference, Brian?
Which one?
When she's basically holding onto the guy's arms and kicking him in the face.
Oh.
Yeah, what move is that?
I don't know. It looks like one of the... I think it happened in Amazing Spider-Man 1 where he basically shot the webs out and used them as a slingshot. That's what it looks like she's doing here.
Yeah, she kind of looks like she's grabbed his arms and she's doing that move where you kick straight up, but she's doing it with both legs. It's kind of like she's sort of using him as a swing.
Yep. And then we find out that she is way too rusty. And we get to, let's see here, she says, so she basically saves the day. You saved us, bless you, bless you. It's okay, I'm glad. Bless you, Miss Batgirl, because I think one of them calls her Batwoman at one point.
Bless you, Batwoman.
Yeah. The name's Batgirl, yeah. And then we have probably the best image this entire trade, or in all 7 of these issues. Simone and the artists have the shooting scene recreated. That's creepy as all hell.
Yeah. Well, do you want to talk about what this is?
Oh yeah. She says, "I'm not Batgirl, not tonight. Not Batman's former star pupil as I used to be. Not the girl who did everything right, who danced through Gotham and dazzled everyone she met. Tonight I am Barbara Gordon, she of the eidetic memory. She who never forgets never, except how to breathe sometimes. And she's basically flashing back to when the Joker shot her.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I describe this as what a flashback would look like in a comic book. That it's funny the way this works because for folks that don't know, a flashback is experiencing the traumatic event again in like little snippets. It could be it could feel as if you're re-experiencing the trauma. And so when you talk to people who have flashbacks from a traumatic event, they'll say, I can see it happening. I'm in it right now. I'm living it again. I can smell it, taste it, see it, all the senses. But what's interesting is that in a flashback, it's not exactly the same. It's very, very similar. And the person will say, this is exactly how it happened, but it's slightly different. And what's great about this flashback in the comic book is that it's not exactly the same, is it? It's how it's how anyone looking at this would say, yep, that's how I remember that happening. But as you said, they recreated this image.
Right.
So it's not exactly one for one exactly the same, but it's incredibly it's similar enough that we would look at that and say, I know exactly what's happening right now. I know exactly what that is.
Yeah, and where that came from.
Right.
And that's what I was mentioning earlier about, the Hawaiian shirt and the camera around his neck and the fedora and, oh God, he's the evil version of Dick Tracy. Damn. Wow, that's so wrong. No, I would have to go in the other room and grab my Killing Joke trade to actually tell you if this was, like, the image from that taken into, but I think it is a straight, probably not a total straight recreation, but it is their, the new 52 recreation of that image.
Exactly.
But yeah, she's flashing back, and it's interesting because in these, first 5 or 6 pages, they basically tell us, her origin, how it happened, what happened. They show us what happened with him shooting her, because I don't remember, and of course we just did the Killing Joke episode and I can't remember it. I don't remember if it actually shows him shooting, like in this it shows the gunshot. It shows her reeling back from being shot. I don't remember. Brian, do you remember if it showed that in the Killing Joke?
The blood come out the other side. That's the part that I feel is different.
Okay.
The expression, obviously, what he's wearing, his expression, and us, I believe, seeing it from that perspective is the same, but I think there are some subtle differences. And why I think that's interesting is that, again, memories are not like Xerox copies. We don't remember it exactly the way it happened. So what is probably unintentional, but what's brilliant about this flashback is that this isn't exactly how we remembered it, but it's so damn close that we would probably say, oh yeah, this is from the Killing Joke, and I know exactly what this is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we get to the next day pretty much, but it was serious. A gut shot. An L1 injury, first lumbar of the spinal cord. For 3 years, I couldn't move or feel my legs. And we get to her and her dad. What's interesting here, in reading the Zero issue before this, is we have zero explanation of where James Jr. is. And yes, I know we can say it a million times, the Zero issue happened after this, and it was Gale backtracking to tell, a Zero origin story, but I'm really surprised that we don't see James Jr. at all in this first issue, or even, I don't even think they mention him. they're solely focused on Barbara and her recovery and her getting back into the costume.
Right. And I do think later, much later, like in some more recent issues, there is an explanation that he's been away.
Right, yeah.
But you're right. Chronologically, the way things were written, it doesn't make direct sense to it. Like, he should probably be there, but I think there's an explanation made later.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we get her and her dad having a discussion, and he's just happy to see his beautiful gifted daughter be able to walk again, this is basically moving day for Barbara Gordon. She's moving out. She needs to stretch her legs. And she goes to the Cherry Tree Hall, which I assume is in Cherry Hill of Gotham. I think, that is where she lives, Cherry Hill. Now, comics use things in pop culture all the time. Why couldn't they have just said Craigslist instead of Greg's List? Really? Come on.
I don't know. Can they say Craigslist? Maybe they can't say Craigslist.
I've seen comics recently refer to iPhones and iPods and laptops and Windows.
Yeah.
I've seen, popular terms in comics more recently now. I don't know about in 2011.
I wonder what goes into that, though, because you had to sign a contract to get your name into the...
Yeah, I did.
So it's very possible that you've got to license it.
Yeah, that's true.
To some degree. Might as well. And we all know that comic companies and all kinds of companies are quite scared of anyone who might be litigious.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But yet half of them can draw an iPhone and without really making it look like a real iPhone. So Barbara's moving out on her own. She meets her new roommate, Alyssa.
Mm-hmm.
And we see her new apartment, her new room. It's really interesting how these two interact with one another. I love the playfulness of Alyssa, and Alyssa is, I believe, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but she is one of the firsts in comics history as we go down the line in later issues. Most definitely. So we see that she's kind of an activist, and the reason why Barbara has chosen to room here is because Alyssa works nights at a bar, and well, that works for her because nighttime she's Batgirl.
Right. It's a good arrangement.
Pretty much, yeah.
I don't know about a roommate that paints the walls and,
fight the power.
Yeah, I would probably be like, I'm out of here.
Well, maybe she was part of the militia at one point in her past.
Yeah, well, you're right. They have an immediate connection.
Yeah.
There's something about, for each other, there's something about each one of them that makes them feel comfortable in a weird way. It seems like they're a good fit.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So after they meet and they fist bump, and we go to the hospital where the guy from the Brisby Killers is recuperating. We then cut back to Barbara and Alyssa, and they have she's like, my shift starts in 20, but I can help you unpack this your van. Yes, no, wait. Yeah, we can't have anyone finding out the hidden bat compartments in the back of the van.
Right.
I think it's absolutely I think it's really interesting that Barbara has the equivalent to a Frank Castle battle van. I know everybody hates the battle van for the Punisher, but
it also makes sense. I mean, the idea that you've got a character like Batman who sort of miraculously has exactly what he needs when he needs it is always sort of been weird. The idea that she's got the equivalent of a battle van totally makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But I don't want to overlook the conversation that happens where the roommate, asks about the wheelchair lift and then just immediately says something about that sounds like that's my biggest fear. I'd be trapped in a chair like that. It's like a prison, without realizing that Barbara was in that chair for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I like that part, because then Barbara, in her mind, says she didn't mean anything by it. She doesn't know. She doesn't know what it's like. She doesn't know that the chair helps you do things, and I don't feel like explaining that to her right now. So it's an interesting exchange, and I think it's nicely done. Like there's an acknowledgement that she was in that chair, and we're reminded, oh right, it was probably in some ways like a prison, but Gail also acknowledges the respect and the functionality of someone in a chair, and I think that was her way of doing that.
Absolutely. So after they hug it out and everything else, and we go back to the hospital, and we see Batman. Not really, but that's when you see that panel here to see Rankin Theodore. Just seeing the cape or whatever this new villain has, it just reminded me of Batman. And Heidi, who has an exclamation point next to her name on her name tag. I don't think they put exclamation points on name tags.
No, I've not seen that before. That's weird.
He says his name is Mirror, and he basically goes on a rampage. And we still don't really see his face, and I think this is purposeful, and I like that it's purposeful that we don't see his face, but we see his giant mirror ball that's on his chest. And we see that, shots fired, what the hell is going on, call it in. So apparently, is that McKenna? That is McKenna, right? That says, what the hell is going on?
Yes.
Yeah. So McKenna and her partner are here guarding this Brisby killer guy. And because Barbara is such a super genius, she basically secretly routed it so she can get her dad's text alerts. You'd think he'd know that. You would think that somehow Gordon would know that he's been hacked.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that anyone really knows for sure when and if. And he's old school. He's totally old school. So he's probably one of those guys who has the difficult time, operating his own texts.
I'm just shocked he has text messaging at all.
No, come on, guys. This isn't 66 Gordon. Come on now. This isn't Chief Wahada here. So she interrupts Alyssa and says that she has to go and she has to deal with something. And we see, okay, I may not have a Batmobile, but I still can arrive in style. Come to Mama, sweetheart. And she has this kick-ass bike with bat symbols on the wheels. That's the biggest thing about the Bat family in general. Anyone that you're going to get to do automotive detailing on your vehicles is going to find out who the hell you are.
Bruce and Alfred are their own mechanics. And then you probably have Lucius.
I thought Lucius did all their...
Yeah, but wasn't there an episode in BTAS where they had him. Yeah, they had a mechanic for the Batmobile in BTAS.
Yeah, man, we haven't gotten there
Yeah.
I just want tires with the bat ears. Those are cool.
I think the thing that shocks me though is the dichotomy between these characters who want to remain mythical, but at the same time do things like put bat symbols on tires so that if they are to leave treads, you know that whoever was there is a member of the Bat family. So it's this interesting juxtaposition of, do I exist? Do I not exist? I'm leaving marks all over the place, and yet people still think that I am a this sort of boogeyman character.
Yeah. Leaving marks all over the place reminds me of the line from Epilogue. Bruce's DNA was easily enough to obtain. He left it all over town. Not remotely what I meant. Oh boy. So Barbara has her bat cycle, and she's off and running, and sorry, Batgirl, emergency. She's basically gonna run over all the hospital workers and doctors. Like, they really have to run straight into her bike. They can't run around her.
Yeah, it's a bit dramatic. And I don't know, I mean, well, at that point she could get off the bike, but she continues to, drive it straight in.
Yeah, she pulls a Looney Tunes gag. Or an old Golden Age cartoon gag where you've got, you ride your horse into the elevator one way and you somehow flip it around and it comes out the other end the proper way to wherever you're going.
Right.
And we see the full image of Mirror. He kind of looks like Mask of the Phantasm.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. Not that I have a problem with that. I think that's great.
Yeah.
But he kind of does. He says, will someone please tell me what the hell is happening? I assume she's going to curse there. You killed my partner. Yes, sorry. Theodore Rankin, you should have fallen. You're on the list. And again, this kind of... I know what the Mirror will eventually... What Batgirl will eventually reveal about him, but this is basically... This whole character is like the Phantasm from Mask of the Phantasm because, she had a list, Chucky Saul, you're on the list. It's kind of the same thing. It's a nice little homage.
Mm-hmm.
I really like it. So Batgirl gets in there and she goes, would you be a lamb and hit the button for the 14th floor? Now, seriously, how did she turn the bike around? Because if she's in that elevator already, how did she turn the bike around?
Hey, if Schwarzenegger could do it with a police horse in True Lies.
Oh my God. That's... Wow.
Where did you pull that from? That was interesting.
So...
Well, and so, okay, now the Mirror has an actual gun and has killed McKenna's partner and is saying, he's pointing it at Batgirl.
Yeah, and her internal monologue is just, oh my God, he's pointing a gun right at the spot.
Mm-hmm. And and she has another flashback, and it's similar to the image we saw before. It might actually be part of the same.
I think it is, yes.
Image. And she says he's going to shoot me, and that again, it's that flashback in comic book form. We know what's happening to her, and she froze. She just freezes, which happens when we're triggered by a traumatic event. When we're triggered by something that reminds us of a tragic, traumatic event. Sorry.
Yeah, because she says it doesn't even have to be. It doesn't even have to be a gun. It can be like the smell of coffee can cause her to go into a
Yeah.
anxiety attack.
She acknowledges a number of things that are actual trauma reminders, like palm trees, images from his shirt, the smell of coffee, the image of a gun pointed at her midsection, the just being in the same position. So what's interesting is while other people may not know that those are her trauma reminders or those are her triggers, she knows them quite well. She knows that she immediately goes into this state of panic. And she says, I froze. He pointed that gun at my spine and I froze.
And in the moment of her freezing, he throws out the Brisby killer guy right out the window in the hospital bed and all.
Yeah.
And Mira's basically like, good night, ladies. It's been a pleasure. It's kind of like he's signing off of late night television or something. And McKenna's like, you let him kill that man. You just watched him die. Murderer!
I'm noticing in this book, now it's the artist's sort of proclivity to giving characters guns in their left hands. Like, Mira's clearly ambidextrous, but, and so is McKenna, because we see her with the right hand. And they switch back and forth pretty liberally. Much more than I would, and I'm a pretty good shot.
Do you not, now this is because I've never handled a weapon of any sort, you don't just switch back and forth?
No.
You're either right or left. There are some people that are ambidextrous, but very few. Very few.
Interesting.
In my case, I have to be left, considering the cerebral palsy affects my right side.
That would be the safer option.
Yeah. No. Practice gun safety, everybody. So that's how the first issue ends. It's such an explosive issue.
Oh, for sure.
It's great. This is one of my favorites. It's the one that really inspired me to write extensively about this character and to talk about the psychology of trauma and PTSD. And it really does a very nice job of explaining what a flashback looks like, explaining what nightmares might be related to trauma. And like we've talked about, what happens to us when we're triggered by these trauma reminders. And so I think it's a great story.
For the next issue, for issue 2, we've got Batgirl sitting in front of a gravestone, and Mirror's shadow is over top of her. I love this. This looks... it's just an amazing cover.
Yeah, it's good.
Absolutely. So we pretty much pick up where we left off.
Yeah, it goes immediately into that scene where Barbara had been asking herself, did I really just let Mirror kill somebody? And we know why, right? She was panicking. She physically froze. So I think we know that she didn't intend to do that.
Yeah. And Mirror basically says, you might have talking about McKenna, you might have a concussion and you're not on the list. And then she says, Batgirl, don't leave this room. I'm sorry, Detective. Never again. Never again.
Yeah.
And flashing again to Batman Beyond with that line.
Yeah.
So we have more of her monologue and an amazing lightning-filled shot of her following Mira out, I believe. Yeah, that's... I'm trying to see how that shot's working here. Huh, that's interesting. So she follows him out, and she realizes now she's not ready. She's nowhere near ready to be actually on patrol. Because she says that, I'm jumping ahead of myself. She chases him, and I love this image at the bottom right of that panel, the bottom left, where she says he doesn't consider me a threat. He didn't look behind him. The image of her coming down on his head, I wish I had that as a larger image. That would be so awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
And then she realizes, uh-oh, too fast. She's not ready. She's nowhere near ready.
Well, I think do you mean physically? Like,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Physically.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is her confidence, right? Because psychologically, she's not. Well, I don't want to say she's not ready psychologically, but she's still struggling with her confidence and asking herself, is this something is this something that I can do after what happened to me? Because she knows that when she puts on the cape and the cowl, she's risking her life again. So I think that there's a combination of psychologically struggling with not sure, the uncertainty, the lack of confidence, and that impacts her ability to function physically.
Well, yeah, I mean, she even says as she's coming down on him, ow, oh, ow, and then her internal is my legs, because that's what I mean. She's physically, she was not ready for this drop.
Yeah.
She just wasn't. She should have been doing real physical therapy instead of the horizontal physical therapy with the physical
Well,
therapist.
we don't know. I would say she was also doing actual physical therapy because she's not just walking; she's scaling buildings and But we don't know what she was doing with him.
It's Jerry Springer all over again. I can see. And Dick Grayson, this is who she's cheating on you with. God, I can just now imagine the entire Bat family on a Jerry Springer episode. Oh my God. That would be so amazing.
But technically, okay, I'm gonna get technical. She wasn't cheating.
No, I know
we're not together, so
I know.
They're on a break.
I'm just alluding to the fact.
Of course, I also like the acknowledgement that she can feel her legs.
Yeah.
Well, of course,
because she couldn't for the last 3 years.
Yeah, what do you mean? Of course she could.
Well, in the sense that you have to have some kind of sensation to be able to.
No, I'm talking about right here. I'm talking about the ow, 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 my legs.
Yeah.
It's the actual acknowledgement that she can feel her legs.
Yes. Yeah. No, I see what you're saying.
So we get to where she says, okay, if I could stand, I might kick myself. And she falls on a cab, and the cabbie gets out. Hey, look what you did to my cab. Yeah, but look what your cab did to my ribs.
Another example where if this were real, she would be incredibly injured at this point.
She would be sidewalk stroganoff, pretty much, yeah. Or street pizza until Robin comes up and changes the menu. That's an Old Wounds reference, people. Get with it. You friggin' bad people all the time with your vampire ways. Why don't you go swoop over Metropolis and fight Larry Luthor? Yes, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am. I read the Larry Luthor line. I'm like, oh my God, that's so hilarious. Wow. So let's see where. So we have that interaction. She says, headed in the same direction he was going when I interrupted him so masterfully, but nothing's out there. So we get back to at the hospital where McKenna is basically refusing to get checked out. She's pulling I'm a tough as nails cop. I'm not injured. I don't need to be checked out. And Gordon comes up and basically puts her in her place, tells her to get checked out, and the bottom panel here. Glad to hear it. Now let CSI do what they can for Detective Paulson. Will you do that for me? My condolences, Detective McKenna. Commissioner, we're going to need a second warrant for Batgirl. She's back. And the look in Gordon's eyes is like complete and utter... to me, it's complete and utter shock. Don't think, and I know for a fact that he doesn't know, because I've read up to the current issues already. And Gail did the Wanted arc, and she almost told him, or she almost showed him, but I know for a fact in this series he does not know that Barbara is Batgirl.
Yeah, but I wonder if they knew going into it that he didn't know, because he does give that look like, my God, my daughter is back in the costume, or someone else is doing what my daughter used to do. He does give a very sort of almost knowing look.
Well, remember he has relationships with the Bat family members, so
yeah, that's true.
I think that look could refer to, I thought she was dead, or I thought she was missing, or this could be a look of relief. So it's good that, like, it's a nice expression, because McKenna doesn't see his expression there. She's behind him. So
yeah. So we find out that Mirror is, like we said before, he's got this hit list. He introduces himself to Batgirl. He opens his giant cloak, and it's all... He's basically his own Hall of Mirrors. He's basically his own Carnival. And I do love how Gail writes her, and I do love how it, how the sarcasticness comes out of Batgirl. I think that's really, really awesome. And she basically engages Mirror, and this is something she's most definitely not ready for.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
He outweighs her. He is stronger. He's basically... Brian will probably crucify me for saying this, and most of the listeners might as well. He's basically her version of Bane.
Oh. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Little bit. I mean, granted, he doesn't have the venom that Bane does, but, I mean, he outweighs her, he outmatches her.
And she does make reference to his sort of super strength, and, he's sort of scary in that regard. No, I would say that he's probably the equivalent, at least up to this point.
Yeah. So he basically, let's see. And I just boosted these papers you keep obsessing over. You have no right. You don't get to see that. Then we both heard sirens. Must have seen us on the surveillance cameras. Like I said, this place holds a lot of capitalists.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You run. Don't want none of this. Oh, man. Ow. And Barbara has no idea how she got home. No idea how she got out of the costume. No idea where she says the bike is probably in police impound. But, we get to this, and Alyssa's like, hey, whoever's leaning on the doorbell, I've got a bat. That's strangely ironic.
I didn't notice that until just now.
And if you look at her shirt, the way the shadow is played on her shirt, it looks like she has a bat symbol on her shirt. Hold on a second. More editing. So Alyssa thinks that some boyfriend has beat her up and all that, and they basically said, Barbara basically says, I promise I'm not a criminal and I'm not a victim. Gordon, I'm serious here. If someone's hurting you, I'm not going to sit by and watch it go on. I'm not that person. Are we clear? Crystal. So we then have more exchanges with them. She basically asks Alyssa if she has something, a little something cute to wear.
Like you do.
Because she's going on a date with her physical therapist. Oh, God. Can we just skip this part? Because there's nothing really that interesting
Wait
here.
a minute. Okay. Yes, we can skip it, but we acknowledge that this is a very healthy thing to do for her. You know, like she's not, she didn't, it's a little bit, there's a lot going on. She should probably just rest for a while. But she's reaching out and connecting with someone. Now, it's her physical therapist, so probably not the person you want to have a relationship with, but I think it's a nice touch.
Mm-hmm.
She's never been one to follow the rules.
I know.
No, but I'm more excited about what's going to happen in the next issue than I am dealing with the blind date with the physical therapist. She finds Mirror's apartment. I don't know if this is live or if it's a pre-programmed message. I think it is live. He says you've made yourself a part of this. You will be a witness. I know who you are, Mr. Mills. I know about your family. You do. Do you know about my family? And it goes to tell how, his family died in a car crash and a fire, and he should have burned up with them. And basically his whole shtick is he doesn't believe in miracles anymore.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what his whole deal is.
His whole thing is he feels that people cheated death and need to be killed in order to make things right. Right.
But Batgirl figures out, my God, this guy doesn't want to kill. He wants to die.
Yeah. You know who he kind of reminds me of, and this is just my pop culture, at work, but he kind of reminds me of, did either of you ever watch the Quantum Leap?
Oh, yeah.
He's the evil leaper. And even the Jason Priestley character in True Calling?
True Calling, oh yeah.
Yeah, like he's the antithesis of what the hero is, where, we've got Sam Beckett saving people's lives, and then you've got the evil leaper going through time trying to make sure that person is killed, because that's how it's supposed to be.
Yep, absolutely. This issue ends with a good man would have burned to death in that car in the snow just south of the Gotham Bay Bridge with his family. You will learn through fire and explosions. You will and an end to all miracles. You will learn. So basically, he's setting up the fact that he has set up a bomb on a train where someone was saved, and the Good Samaritan who saved that person, they're both going to die. And that's how this one ends. And the next cover is probably one of the two covers that I absolutely love from these 7 issues. It's basically Batgirl swing-kicking Nightwing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, boy.
But it looks, the art here, it looks a bit rotoscope-ish to me.
Mm-hmm.
On the cover, you mean?
Am I using that term right?
Yes.
In the sense that
it looks like there could have been models.
Yeah, like illustrated from actual people.
Potentially, yeah. So again, we pick up where we left off, where she's got to go stop this train bombing, and this reminds me so much of Die Hard with a Vengeance. Where he's like, don't worry, New York City police, just need to find something, just need to look at something.
Yeah.
And we see a beautiful splash page of Batgirl riding the train.
More doves.
Yep.
Or birds.
Pigeons. Something like that. So throughout this, she's basically conversing with Mirror, who apparently gave her, left her an earpiece so they could keep track of each other. He says, "Do you understand now, Batgirl? For every Rupert Ansell saved by a stranger from certain death, there are thousands who die needlessly. Thousands." This is just crazy.
So in other words, no one person deserves to be saved any more than any of those thousands of people.
Yep. Absolutely. So she figures out, okay, well, if I can't stop the bomb, I'm going to grab the guy. And she figures out, okay, well, which one of you is Rupert Ansell? And it turns out that not only does she saves him, but she doesn't save the other person, because what happened was Rupert Ansell rides the train one way, the Good Samaritan rides it the opposite direction. So the other train explodes carrying the Good Samaritan, so the Good Samaritan dies.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing.
I think later we find out that five people died in this accident.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We go back to McKenna's place 2 hours after the train explosion. We go there, and we also go back to the police precinct, I believe. Yeah, the police precinct, because she's on the phone with Gordon, and
she's at home. She's not. She's not allowed to work.
No, yeah, she's at home. She's not allowed to work, but I like how they show each of them on the phone instead of just having her on the phone to him. I like the way that the artist did that, and then Barbara's waiting in the background in his office, and McKenna is determined to find out whatever happened to Batgirl.
Yeah.
And she has really, really old people text on her monitor. It is very large font.
Yes. All as I can think of is that newfangled keyboard that infomercials at 3 a.m. advertise, where super giant large keys so you can see them. It's kind of like those old phones in the early 90s, super giant button phones.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh my God.
It's going to take her forever to read that article.
Yeah. It's zoomed over 9,000. So we get more with Commissioner Gordon and Barbara.
By the way, you know what I love about these two pages? It's just nothing but redheads. Just lots of orange hair
Well,
all
it's funny
over.
you say that, but a lot of times in Batgirl we see, Barbara and Commissioner Gordon have these kinds of exchanges, and it's really pretty. I mean, there's an opportunity to have all this very brightly colored couple of pages, because most of the rest of this, it's
very dark.
A lot of dark. So it's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we then get to the police impound, because that's where she figured they took her bike to, which I'm not sure if if that was Batman, he would never allowed that. He would have said shields or something. I don't. And that just shows the difference between the two of them, really.
Right, exactly.
And I absolutely love this, because by this point in the book, I had already been reading Nightwing. I actually read Batgirl backwards. I started at issue 13 and went forward, and then came back to this.
That's interesting.
Yeah, well.
So it's okay if you read 0.
Yeah, kind of. But my main complaint with 0 is how it's like it should have been in this first trade, not the second one. That's my main complaint with it.
Yeah.
But that's how DC does things. So Barbara breaks into the police impound. She's calling out to her baby, her bike, and
she finds Dick.
That's what she said. Actually, what happens is stealing from the cops now, are we? And this is what I love about certain comics and certain characters, is how they can do a line on a page like that, and then you have to turn the page to reveal who the character is. And
right.
He says, also, isn't it a little weird to be talking to your bike?
How embarrassing for her.
But she recovers, but that depends. Maybe I wasn't talking to the bike. There's all kinds of hidden messages there. And we really get the sense of these two and their chemistry and their friction together. And he says, "Okay, but how do we get out of here, smarty pants? I have a skeleton key, actually." And all she does is break through the fence.
Yeah.
And we get more monologue from her about their, relationship and how this moment right now with Dick wrapped around her, and this moment is painfully nice considering what she's been through the last few months and days and years. Not that I think she's worried about him, but she asks him, "You okay?" "I've been shot out of cannons, Batgirl. I'm okay." I just love the interaction between these two.
Yeah, it's great.
Absolutely. And they talk about this game of tag that they always used to play, and she tags him, and "You're it, bird boy," and looks like she flies off. And I had this image of Nightwing as a profile picture on Facebook. Redheads. What is it about redheads? And so let's see, where do we go from here? We get kind of a backstory between the two of them a little bit. That is Dick, because that's what confused me about the stupid physical therapist at first. I was like, hey, wait a second, isn't that Dick? No, that's not Dick Grayson.
No.
What's going on here? Because the designs are kind of similar.
Yeah. Look, there's a lot of dark-haired, young Bruce-looking boys around Gotham. Just,
Exactly. And it seems to be that, after we get this flashback of the two of them, it seems as if she's lost him and she's like, "Nightwing," and he's right behind her and taps her on the shoulder. "Ahem, tag." She screams, "I win, right? I think that's a win. I'll ahem you." And the whole thing with the two of them here is he's looking in on her, but he's not really looking in on her, but he and Batman are worried about where she's going.
Sure. Well,
he
even comments something about, "Do you want to be back in the chair again?" I think he has a good reason to be worried about her, and so it makes sense.
Yep. And we go to he says, "Batgirl, Bab, stop. Batman and I are worried. Yes, it's not because we doubt you. It's because we love you. Do you not really see that?" And her monologue says, "And there's the heart of it. Damn. I love the image that the artist does of her eye, because it looks like it's his emblem in her iris.
Mm-hmm.
Or not her iris, in her pupil."
Mm-hmm.
That is very awesome. And she goes, "You're a mess, Yeah, I fought this tough redhead chick. She beat the crap out of me. She sounds wonderful." And this one pretty much ends with her wanting to be alone, and he leaves her alone.
Yeah. Well, it's important to her because he doesn't know the whole story, of course, but she communicates to him that she needs to independently take care of this one, because she needs to feel empowered. She needs to feel like she can be Batgirl again. Did we lose signal?
No.
Oh. Sorry.
So the next one is basically more of her hunting down Mirror. Absolutely love that cover. Of her basically putting her foot in his mirrored face.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. And the first page of this one is Batgirl in a wheelchair. That was something I was not expecting.
Yeah, getting a glimpse at that.
Oh yeah.
That was something I was most definitely not expecting whatsoever.
But what
and this is
I think, do we find out this is a nightmare she's having? I believe. Yeah.
This is a nightmare that she's having. She says another one every night lately.
Mm-hmm.
And we're back to the breathe, Barbara, breathe. Now she says in her monologue after the breathe, Barbara, breathe, she says survivor's guilt or something like it. I know that's all it is, but it still stings down to the bone. So is it survivor's guilt, Drea?
Well, it's a couple of things, because what is survivor's guilt? Survivor's guilt happens when you feel as though you should have been the one, the victim, or the one to die if you witness a colleague, a friend, someone else die. So that did happen to her, in the sense that she was responsible for possibly a couple of deaths in the first issue.
Mm-hmm.
So there could be survivor's guilt in the sense that,
but also it's the question of why did she survive the Joker's gunshot when thousands of others don't on a daily basis.
I mean, that's true. That's true. But I don't know that I would have chosen that. What we see is she's having nightmares about being back in the chair. Interestingly, in the Batgirl suit, which is kind of an interesting image. And she's having nightmares, I think, routinely, which is a classic symptom of PTSD. So, we could call it survivor's guilt. I would call it PTSD, or I would call it re-experiencing symptoms. And that's probably better capturing what's happening to her psychologically.
Mm. So she figures out this whole thing with Mills, and she figures out what he's, attempting to do and trying to do, and she actually uses his one Achilles heel against him, which is his family. And she leaves a note at their graves to have him meet her at the circus. And she, ironically, I wouldn't say it's irony really, but she basically uses the Hall of Mirrors against him.
Mm-hmm.
I love this page where she says, "Hello, Agent Mills," and she clicks and turns on the mirrors. The bat at the top. Welcome to your dark night of the soul. Absolutely love that image. It's so chilling. It's interesting how she doesn't normally, like, in every media I've seen, I really don't want to compare her to Spider-Man, but she's kind of the more quippy superhero. She doesn't really use the bat symbol like Batman would.
Right.
She doesn't use it to strike fear in the hearts of the criminals like he does.
Right.
But I thought it was really interesting that she's doing that here with that overarching shadow of the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that.
Yeah, what she acknowledges, I feel like she's always saying, okay, I'm not going to beat this guy in the traditional sense. I can't. He's bigger, he's stronger. That seems to be her MO. But I'm smarter. I can trick him. I can outwit him. And she does. I mean, that's what that's her MO, as I said.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the so she wraps it up with Mirror. She basically stops him and pretty much makes him realize, not necessarily the error of his ways, but she basically tells him, we live in Gotham City, Mirror. Sometimes the extraordinary things happen to the very worst people, and the best people suffer. And sometimes people get their miracles, whether they deserve them or not. Whether they deserve them or not. Believe me, I know.
Mm-hmm.
We never really see what happens to him. At least not by the end of the page of this issue.
Right.
because it goes to later that night, because the whole time during this issue, it's Christmas time. Yay! And just waiting for certain toxins to enter the air. I've always wanted one of these guys. It's no freaking way. It's a Joey, a ceramic cooking knife. So they're back at their apartment. Alyssa and Barbara have a few Christmas moments, and it's just my father and my brother. Dad's working tonight. I'll see him in the morning. I'm used to it. It's okay. And then ding dong. God, you have no idea. I didn't even really pay attention to the panel next to the ding dong because I wasn't really wanting to pay attention to it. But she's like, "I'll get it. May I, Barbara?" And don't you recognize me, Barbara? I'm your mother. Dun dun dun.
And you in about 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
The rest of the trade, the rest of the issues, the final kind of story here is dealing with Barbara and her mother. And we have this other plot with Bruce and these other people with the 338s. I think this is where the Nightfall stuff kind of starts a little bit.
Right.
Because we have Disciples of Nightfall. I will say my two favorite covers out of this entire thing, out of these 7 issues, are the Nightwing cover and then the Batman cover for I believe it's the final issue. I think it's issue 7. That's that cover. It's basically her and Batman with snow all around them. Absolutely love that cover.
Oh, right.
Absolutely love it.
That's the one with Gretel, right?
Yeah, Gretel. Yeah. That's the one with Gretel. And then the 7th issue is basically Barbara Gordon, or it's basically Batgirl versus Bruce Wayne, because they've turned Bruce into a 338. And that gets resolved fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
There's not these 2 issues with the issues with Gretel, the issue 6 and 7. There's not until almost the end of issue 7 is there a lot of psychological stuff, at least for me.
Right.
I could be wrong. Andrea can correct me. Sure that there's interweavings with her mother, but the Gretel storyline takes center stage here. And then by almost the end of the issue, we have the stuff with her mother. I will say about the final couple pages on issue 7, I absolutely love McKenna. You, McKenna, look, I'm sorry about your partner. I couldn't help him, but you've got to let me stop that woman on the crane. Let the professionals do that, girl. Stand back, Batman. She's an accessory. You can arrest us both then, but later. I absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. Oh, God, I can so hear Kevin Conroy saying that line. Oh, God.
Well, it's interesting, too. Like, isn't... now, we're looking at the individual issues and not the trade, but, like, isn't Grotesque in the first trade?
Yeah.
So you get that cool... There's that great moment where she realizes that one of the henchmen is the henchman that stands over the shoulder of the Joker during the infamous Killing Joke scene.
Yeah.
And she's got to come face to face with him again. Like, she instantly recognizes him.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It basically ends with Gretel obviously getting arrested. They'll put me away. I'll be powerless. Please, let me go. Batgirl's monologue is, I had people who loved me, who helped guide me away from the abyss. I could have been Gretel, but revenge heals what's broken. We know about that, don't we, Batman? And we see Batgirl on the street and Batman basically looking over her. The trade also has a few sketches in it of the new 52 Batgirl. It has, I believe, a sketch of Grotesque. And, you know, they're really all very nice designs. It has, I'm trying to see what kind of cover is this, $2.99. It has a weird, it's the sketch version of the mirror cover where she's sitting at the gravesite. So it has a sketch version of that. Overall, these first 7 issues, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, once you read this, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be sucked into Batgirl's world.
And a lot of people have said, you know, after I recommended it, a lot of people said they weren't interested in the character Batgirl. They didn't read Batgirl comics, and it was this iteration of Batgirl that brought them back or introduced them to her, but also brought them back to reading superhero comics again. I
think just the general comic reader who was reading Batgirl, maybe it might have been somebody stuck on, Stephanie Brown is my Batgirl, and they got rid of her to bring Barbara back, and all this and all that and everything else.
And I realized that Gail even said that to bring Barbara back was not her decision. That was something that DC Comics wanted to do, and she actually thought it was a bad idea at first. But to be perfectly honest, I think it's the best decision they could have made, because it forced Gail to come up with a good story that allowed Barbara to come back. And I think that the magic that came out of that is gold.
Absolutely. You know, I think the other thing is, and I think I've said this in several of my reviews, because I think I started writing reviews for this series at issue 19, maybe. I could be wrong. I'd have to go back on the site and look. I've said it several times in my written reviews. This is not just a superhero book. This is a superhero book that has psychological ramifications throughout its entire run.
I totally agree.
Every arc that Gale has set up to this point. Okay, there have been pretty much 2 one-shot issues, which is the 25 issue written by Marguerite Bennett, which is the 0-year issue, and the issue 30, which really doesn't tie into what Gale's... I mean, it ties in, but it doesn't, because it's the Midnight Man story. It's pretty much... It's a self-contained story since it's not Gale's writing, but everything else that she's done, it's absolutely amazing. I think that's going to do it for us. We've been here for a while. I know these guys have to get to doing their own show.
This is great.
Yeah, thank you for having us. This is an opportunity to really get into the details of a great story, and we had a blast doing it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Next time that hopefully Brian and Dr. Dre will return is in June, when we will be covering Volume 2. Because as long as you guys are willing to do this, I plan on having you on all the volumes.
Well, there might be a couple issues I would want to talk about.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. So I think that's going to do it for us here on the Pull Bag for this part of Batman 75th Anniversary Month. Coming up next, what do we have? Yes. A Death in the Family is coming up next, where America decided to kill Jason Todd. Yay! Brian, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm bward028.
What about you, Drea?
I am at Arkham Asylum Doc on Twitter, and my website is underthemaskonline.com.
Awesome. You guys want to pimp out the show?
Absolutely. You can listen to the podcast, The Arkham Sessions. We are on iTunes, and you can find all the episodes at underthemaskonline.com. You can also follow us on Twitter. We are at Arkham Sessions.
Awesome. And they're also on Facebook, The Arkham Sessions as well.
It's true.
Absolutely. One of the best podcasts I've ever listened to.
And we appreciate your support.
Yeah, thank you for listening and for commenting and chatting about it.
Yeah, it's such a unique way to approach a review show. It's just amazing. All right, so I have been TFG and Mike. They are Brian and Andrea from the Arkham Sessions. Make your great escape into comics, and we will catch you next time.
Just a minute. Dick? What's wrong?
I didn't know where else to go. I've had it. I can't do this anymore.
Do what?
I've got to get away. Away from him.
I don't understand.
How could you? How could anybody?
Well, sit down and tell me about it.
I can't.
You can tell me.
It's not that. It's just... Oh, forget it! I shouldn't have come here. I'm sorry. Gotta work this out on my own. I'll call you later.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pullback, the GCRN's comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you are leaving the message for, and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. Send us an email feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.